Assalamualaikum and hello to everyone. For the presentation today, first of all, I'm going to introduce myself and my team members. My name is Nur Azalina. Along with me is Edi Rashida, Munira, Ezatul and Aida. So our presentation today is about varnish. What is varnish? Varnish is one of the important parts of surface coating industry. Varnish is a transparent, hard, protective finish or film. The term varnish refers to the finished appearance of the product. It is not a term for any single or specific chemical composition or formula. It is primarily used in wood finishing, but also for other materials. Varnish is traditionally a combination of a drying oil, a resin, and a thinner or solvent. Varnish finishes are usually glossy but may design to produce satin or semi-glossy by the addition of flattening agents. Let's move on to the uses of varnish. Next, okay. Varnish provide protective coatings for wooden surface and various decorative objects. So we use varnish in the on the wooden surface to protect it against staining, abrasion, and weather to reduce water penetration together with other materials without obscuring the grain or changing the color of wood. Second one, varnish are used on masonry to reduce penetration of moisture and damage from freezing. Next is we use varnish to protect and enhance the appearance of wooden floor and furniture. So let's talk about the varnish manufacturing process. First, materials are poured into the mixing tank from the material tank and the injection valve. Basically, the material used is the raw material such as resin, solvent, and dryer, which is will further explained by the next presenter. And then we heated the mixing material to make them homogeneous. After that, we cool the mixture and filter before the varnish loaded into drums or can for shipping. So I'll pass the presentation to our next presenter, Munira. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Azalina. So now I'm going to talk about the raw materials used in the production of varnish. So there are two essential components of varnish, and they are resin, solvent, and dryer. The resin can be either synthetic or natural, and the solvent that is used must suit the resin so that the resin can be dissolved into liquid. The dryer is an additive that is added into the varnish to accelerate the drying, especially in oil-based varnishes. Next. So now for resin, they can be classified into three. There are three types of resin, which are natural resin, modified natural resin, and synthetic resin. Natural resin is obtained from living plants or fossils. For examples, there are shellac, amber, copper, and rosin. And then next, for modified natural resin, we have natural resin that is altered by chemical reaction. For examples, we have Congo ester and ester gum. So next, synthetic resin is resin produced by plastic industries. This type of resin can be either thermosets or thermoplastic. Some examples of synthetic resin are acrylic, epoxy, and phenolics. Next. So next we have solvents. For the solvent used in varnish, there are two common solvents used. They are drying oil and volatile solvent. Drying oils are linseed oil and tung oil. So for volatile solvent, we have methylated spirit and turpentine. And Next, the combination of resin and solvent is important in varnish production because they have to be compatible to be able to dissolve the resin into liquid. For example, amber and copper can be dissolved in linseed oil, and shellac can be dissolved in methylated spirit, and so on. So next, uh, this is this is the last component of varnish, in which we have dryers. Dryers, as I said before, they accelerate the rate of drying, and they are usually added in oil-based varnishes. They may be or may not be added into the varnish according to the purpose of the varnish. For example, for dryers, we have lead to acetate, white copper, and litharge, which is uh, platinum oxide, right? Lead oxide, sorry. So I'm going to pass the presentation to the next presenter.
Okay, thank you. Just now, we already see the definition of varnish, the process involved in varnish manufacturing, and what materials included to manufacture the varnish. Now we will see how this varnish classified by the composition and scope, and also the type of solvent used in those varnishes. This classification shows that the varnishes uses are different among them. So let's see. First, the varnish classified into general class. The first is the natural resin and the second is the synthetic resin. For natural resin, the varnish was solution of natural resins that are the secretion of plants. Among these natural resins are damar, copal, and rosin. These resins are synthesized by the plants to form a resinous substance in varnish. The resin is produced by heating the resins, adding natural oils, cooking the mixture, then diluting with solvent. This varnish may take 3 to 4 days to harden and it form a yellow tint. Next, we also know that in any chemical products, there will be a synthetic one. In varnish, synthetic resin replace the natural resin as it largely manufactured. Among these synthetic resins, there are epoxy, polyurethane, acrylic, and etc. used in the varnish. The production is similar to the natural resin but mixing or blending it with the synthetic resin. Varnish produced by synthetic resins, like nowadays, can be chemically tailored with great precision for particular uses. So we can see the next slide. Okay, this the natural resins used as its secretion from plants such as damar, copal, and rosin. So next slide is synthetic resin. It's altered by chemical action by synthetic resin such as epoxy, polyurethane, or acrylic. So both of resin is produced by similar process, but for synthetic resin, it mixing or blending with synthetic resin. So next, the varnish also can be classified into the type of solvent used, which are solvent-based varnish and water-based varnish. The solvent-based varnish contains solvent in mixture. The solvent is assist drying the film of coating, while for the water-based varnish, the solvent used is water-based. The water will evaporate and dry, thus harden the coating. Next slide. So the example of solvent-based varnish is solvent-based polyurethane varnishes, oil resin varnishes, and spirits varnishes. So we can see the explanation about this solvent-based varnish on next slide. Okay, first is solvent-based polyurethane varnishes. The raw materials used are solvent-based polyurethane resin, butyl glycol, xylene, and UV additive agent. There are one and two components in this solvent-based polyurethane varnishes. One component polyurethane varnish use the moisture contained in the air to harden, while for two components are two stages of drying, where the first stage, the solvent evaporates, and then the chemical drying takes place and the varnish is hardened. It is highly durable and used to varnish floors such as lounge or halls because it has high intensity of movement. So the varnish I'm sorry. So then we will move to oil-based varnish. Okay, the raw materials used is drying oils, natural or synthetic resins, thinner, and usually a number of additives added, it modifying their appearance or properties. The varnish is drying slowly but form hard and durable coating. It is used to varnish external woodwork, joinery, or fittings. Then the spirits varnish. Raw material used is solutions of natural or synthetic resins dissolved in ethyl alcohol. The spirit varnish dry quickly but are not durable and used to varnish furniture. So next slide is the water-based varnish. The example of the water-based varnish is water-based polyurethane varnishes, acrylic varnishes, and polyurethane acrylic varnishes. So next slide. Okay, the water-based polyurethane is using raw materials such as water-based polyurethane resin, butyl glycol, and UV additive agent. It is more durable than solvent-based and used to varnish floors such as living rooms. Then the acrylic varnish. It is a cheap substance that creates transparent coatings without changing the color of the wood. The raw materials used are drying oils, natural or synthetic resin, or an acrylic polymer. It is durable coating and used to varnish wooden household products and floors. And lastly is the polyurethane acrylic varnish. The raw materials use solution of natural or synthetic resins, polyurethane acrylic. The varnish dry quickly but are not durable coating. It is used to varnish indoor woods. So next slide is the addition information for varnish, because varnish is not only used in woodwork but also other industry, and one of the example of industry is automobile. Car varnish is a purified transparent resin with special additive. The material has good brightness and glows, and the coating protecting by the varnish withstands influence of sunlight, road reagents, and many other negative effects. The varnish used is well polished and elastic, and the type of varnish used for the automobile usually such as acrylic varnish or the water-based varnish. The effects varnish on the automobile may in glossy, matte, or transparent varnish. So this varnish give properties to the product that be applied. The next slide is about the properties of varnish. So first, as you know, it is combination of a drying oil, a resin, and a thinner or solvent. Also, it is the transparent. The color of varnish should not fade away when the surface is exposed to the atmospheric action. The third is the film developed by varnish should be hard, tough, and durable, and also protecting finish. The varnish should render the surface glossy, but may be designed to produce satin or semi-gloss or matte. And the varnish may be able to withstand most of mechanical impacts, such as for automobile varnish, and it also must have strength for, for protect the coating. So next, I will pass the presentation to Aida for industry development of varnish.
Okay, thank you, Estatul. Now I will share the development of the varnish. As we know that the varnish has been developed in many industries such as automotive and automotive, wood, dentistry, pharmaceutical, and cosmetic, etc. But today I will focus more on automobile, and wood. First is automobile. At the beginning of the automotive industry, about 100 years ago, cars were painted with a varnish like product that was brushed onto the vehicle surface. This coating was sand and smooth, and then the varnish was reapplied and refinished to establish several layers of the coating. After multiple layers of varnish were applied, vehicles were polished to produce shiny surface. Next is the most important development varnish industry has been the introduction of synthetic resin as replacement for natural resins in the Next is the most important development varnish industry has been the introduction of synthetic resin as replacement for natural resin in the manufacture of varnish and enamels. Chief among which are the arctic, polyurethane, phenolic, vinyl, and epoxy resins. The first synthetic resins used in varnish, developed by the chemist Leo Baekeland, were phenolic resins similar to bakelite. Improved through the 1930s and 40s, phenolics were displaced in many uses by arctics, which eventually became the single most important resin class in the coating industry. Next is the market is majorly influenced by the increasing The market is majorly influenced by the increasing automobile sector due to growing demand for vehicles and growth in construction industry due to increased heating power. Moreover, increasing the urbanization in the developing as well as developed economies is positively affecting the paint and varnish market. However, strict regulation for volatile organic compounds and other unsafe elements in varnish and paint is encouraging the major players to make changes in their products, which will ultimately hamper growth of the market. Now we move to the next slide, which is wood. For the information, the global wood varnishes market is currently dominated by the Asia-Pacific region, with increasing demand for wood coatings from the residential sector in the region. China has been major growth in the global wood varnishes market in the past few years, followed by India, Europe, and North America are slated to hold significant shares in the global market. As a consumer preference is inclined towards faster drying varnishes, there has been an increase in the use of water-based varnishes as they have lower level of toxicity, emit less odor, and have a faster drying capability as compared to oil and solvent-based varnishes. But these varnishes are not suitable for use in high heat and where they may be exposed to chemicals. Another trend observed in the wood varnishes market is the use of epoxy as an undercoat and then varnish is applied over the surface of wood. This method offers better resistance. The next is lead melamine. Lead melamine is formaldehyde composition in terms of the male for lead. Has been proved to be an excellent and drying varnish for the wood varnishing industry due to the improved gloss, water resistant, and drying characteristics. Most recent compositions are even better since they are non-spheric based and can be applied by spray also. Varnish also has been improved by research on film forming oils like China wood or tang oil, the oil of the other vegetable and plant sources. The tang most recent of which castor oil. For Malaysia, industry of the varnish consequently, the lower demand for resins and plastic products, as well as lower usage of industrial gases in the electronics and electrical products. These industries affected the production of the chemical product. At the same time, slower external demand for resins, toiletries, and pharmaceutical products also contribute to the decline in output of this industry. These products included paints, varnishes, and lacquers for use in car production and construction activities. Next, I will pass the presentation to the Eli Rashida.
Okay, thank you, Aida. Okay. In varnish, there are some chemical compound that could bring advantages and also disadvantages to us, such as polyurethane, epoxy, and also formaldehyde. Okay, next slide. Okay, for polyurethane, we must use it in a well-ventilated area. This is because this polymer is very flammable especially when they are in their liquid form. So when we have a direct contact with this polymer or we breathe it in, it could be a toxic. So we need to use a face mask, glove to protect ourselves, and it is also important to have a good ventilation. The next cons that we could receive is polyurethane could cause it will make our health risk increase and be in danger. It is because polyurethane contain a non-respiratory toxin which is called as isocyanates. So when it is left uncured, polyurethane will cause asthma and other breathing problems. However, even though it brings disadvantages, this polyurethane will cause a great look and protection because it will give a great shine and protection to our furnitures. The next chemical is epoxy. Okay, epoxy. Epoxy will cause a cancer and also dermatitis because when the epoxy fumes are inhaled, if we inhale the epoxy, they can affect our nose, throat, and lungs. So most symptoms from the inhalation of epoxy will involve the inflammation and the irritation of the nose, throat, and lungs. The repetitive and high amounts of exposure to these epoxy fumes could result in sensitization and also asthma. However, epoxy is very durable and easy to clean. This is very ideal for us to use it on the countertops and floors because it is both water resistant and very difficult to scratch. Epoxy also long lasting. It cool long lasting because epoxy can withstand with many different types of cleaning methods. It will long lasting without losing its shine and luster. If we properly apply this epoxy, it will last many years without deteriorating. Even when it was exposed to harsh environmental elements, it will be long lasting. The next chemical compounds is formaldehyde. Okay, for formaldehyde, it will cause a health risk for us because when this formaldehyde is released into the air from our furniture, it will cause leukemia and cancers of the nose, throat, and also sinus. However, formaldehyde provides exceptionally high functionality in a resource-efficient way. Resource efficiency means that the materials and energy are not wasted in its production. It also means that this is very affordable and inexpensive. No other organic molecule is able to achieve the same results at the same cost as the formaldehyde. Okay, next, the conclusion of this presentation. Okay, to summarize, varnish is a liquid coating material that containing a resin that dries to a hard transparent film. Varnish also provides a protective coating for our wooden surface, furniture, and also many decorative objects. And varnish, there are three essential components. Firstly, the resins. The resin could be a synthetic or a natural one. The second one is its solvent. The solvent must suit the resin to be dissolved, such as drying oil or volatile solvent. And the third one is dryer. Dryer is to accelerate drying, especially in oil-based varnish. So when our varnish dries, its solvent portion will evaporate and the remaining constituents will oxidize or polymerize to form a durable transparent film. Next, okay, varnish, if you, as the as Izatu Shaira said, varnish can be classified by its solvent, which is solvent-based varnish and also water-based varnish. Solvent-based varnish has three types, which is solvent-based polyurethane, oil resin, and also spirits varnish. While water-based varnish has also three types of varnish, which are water-based polyurethane varnish, acrylic varnish, and also polyurethane acrylic varnish. Varnish has many industrial development that using varnish, such as automotive industry, and also in wood industry. And also, lastly, there are many chemical compounds in varnish that gives advantages and also disadvantages to us, such as polyurethane, epoxy, formaldehyde, and many others. Okay, however, varnish is so good. There are many industrial using varnish. Okay, that's all from us. Thank you.